Welcome up to my little retreat, which is my workshop at the same time as doing everything else. So the V5.5, I'm just going to show you one here that's not hooked up, but talk you through what it can do. So what I would suggest is that you're going to be using a lot of cordless tools. So I use the Ryobi stuff. A couple of tools that are going to do an off-grid, which are really valuable, is one of these, which is a ripper. That can change the blades, that can cut through nails, timber, even steel. So if you have to rip stuff apart like I do and I make a mistake with timber, I just basically whack it in there and I can cut through between the gaps, take all the nails out and then redo it. It takes me 2 seconds, not the old days, it takes you forever. And the other thing is I've got the Ryobi nail gun here, and that's been invaluable as well. So that is a framing gun, and that can bang in 90mm nails down to about 25mm I think, but I'm only using, the smallest I'm using 50mm because I'm using 35 and 45mm thick, and I always put the double extra size nail in and I'm connecting stuff together with. So I'm charging at the moment, might be able to see it on camera, I'm not sure, but I'm charging the 5000 milliamps. I'm using them just to save time between changing batteries. So I use those in something like a nail gun. I mean, I don't have to change that all day with the 5000 milliamp, possibly not even 2 days. So I've got that, and then I've got the 2000 milliamps for just stuff like drills. So I can leave the power packs in each of the drills. So I've got one that's maybe has an impact driver, so I might be putting in decking screws, and the other one I might have a hole saw, which I'm doing at the moment because I'm doing plumbing. So this can quite happily run. This got to be very careful here, because you can run inverters off the V5.5. They have a 50 amp output each, so you've got 50 amp by 2 Anderson. So the 50 amp is your rating. So you can run a 600 watt inverter if you wanted to, because the cabling that's going to be coming out of that to inverter, make sure it's at least rated 50 amp. Simple as that. Now I do run, and I'm not going to do it because you'll get the wrong idea. So I've got a 1500 watt inverter, and it's a good inverter, and it's got dual outputs. Now I know I can't use that 1500 watt, but by plugging the 1500 watt inverter here with 50 amp cabling on that, I know I can still use about 500 or 600 watt, and I can use 2 of those if I want to, but I can't exceed that because of the Anderson output, otherwise you'll cook it. So what I'm doing is I'll run, say 2 of the pack chargers, so the 2 of the 18 volts, I'll run them out of that, and you might have a fast charger. I know those 2 together running 5000 milliamps that are dead flat will probably only draw about 400 watt. So I know that 1500 watt inverter, I'm not actually using even a third of the capacity, but that's fine. I'd rather be not pushing that inverter anyway. So it's just something to remember. So then I've still got the other 50 amp output there. I can run a splitter on that and run my fridges at the same time, because I've got 100 amp constant output. So at the moment, like I've got I've got a V5.5 down there, and that's running 2 fridges. They're both one's a 45, I think the other one's 52 litre. And so I'm running the 2 fridges off one of those ports, and then the other port I've got an inverter, which I can do my charging over there. Okay, so I know I'm only still using, even if they're running both together, I'm still only using half the unit's capacity. But how many other outputs do I have? I can still use the Siga plugs as outputs. I've still got the fast USB-C on that. So if I'm not using the inverter, obviously I can unplug the inverter, and then I can have another Y lead running off that to run 2 more things, just not exceeding 50 amp at any given time from the Anderson. 100 amp you can run constant out of this at any given time. However, how long is it going to last? It's a 100 amp hour battery, so just remember as to what you're using it for. Now for me, I can connect this up to my solar panels on the roof, and I'm connecting just 300 watt directly into the red over here, so I don't have to regulate it. Why? The red indicates unregulated input, and that means on the other side in here there's an MPPT, there's a solar controller, which means I don't have to put a regulator between it. I do have a reg on the wall over here, so I can, if I wanted to run, as I do, I have some other panels that are running to a reg. I can then plug the reg into my other Nomad, or I can plug the reg into my regulated input. But my maximum charge rate is 50 amp at any given time. So in an off-grid situation like this, I've got a Siga plug here, and that's quite happily running the lights above, because I'm using the other stuff for some heavy draw kind of equipment. But if I'm using the Siga plug, it's quite simple. This stuff here is only running between all that lighting up the top. It's not even 2 amp. It's probably about 1.5, 2 amp with that lighting. So I can plug that into the Siga plug, which is rated 10 amp. So that's no problem. Cabling is correct. I've got a switch between it, and I can turn it on and off. And then I've got another Siga plug there if I've got some other type of Siga accessory. But for me, this does everything that I want it to do, because like I set it up with the 2 Y leads, again, again 50 amp on each of the two outputs on the Andersons, but I do know that I cannot seed that out of each of the Andersons. So yes, I might have a bigger than 600 watt inverter on one of them. Typically I've got a 600 watt inverter here, but I don't have one to show you. But if you're going to use an inverter, if you're going to run something like the TV behind me, so that's a 75 inch behind me, that still only draws about 2 amp. So I can happily run that out of a 600 watt inverter. It's no big deal. So at the moment it's not on because I'm going to be starting working on the build. So the whole thing is that I know what I'm doing with it. Take your time. Just make sure you go, what am I plugging in? What is drawing it? You've got the LCD on here, or you can pick your phone up and have a look at the phone and see what it's doing at any given time. So once you've set that up, you can pull your plugs in and out of the Anderson, and you can put whatever else on it. So if I was still running the fridges, which I would, but all my charging and all the other things that I've got running off my other Anderson, unplug that and I can put my TV in later. So if I want to watch TV when I finish working, I can watch the TV. Okay, I've still got my lighting and all that on. And again, I've got, if I want to run my my oven over there, it's an oven that doesn't really draw that much, so it takes a bit of time. It's like the 12 volt ones you get. So that's gonna, and I put that into the Anderson because it's a better connection. And yeah, I can use that as a heat up, warm up, whatever, but it takes probably twice as long as on a normal induction. Who cares? If I want to, I've got butane stuff over here, and at the end of the day, I've got a pizza oven over there if I want to do that. So that's a V5.5, and yeah, you can have the mounting brackets on the side here, which are removable, and that comes with the unit. I don't need to use the AC/DC charger because I've got solar up here. And I've got solar panels lying around the place. And if I've got one lying around that's got the wires exposed, I can move this to another cabin, which I'll show you later. Move it to the other cabin, and I've got power up there as well. And I can just plug, because I've got an Anderson, a red Anderson on a couple of the panels, I can plug it into the red Anderson directly, and that's going to charge it because that's got a controller inside it. So that's a V5.5. Thought I'd show you before I started getting up and working this morning while it's still dark. But that's how you're using it if you actually got an off-grid situation like here. Very surprised it's not as windy as it normally is up here. So the cabin that I'm in at the moment, you would have seen the subframe around the outside. So I've got Colorbond on the outside at the moment. It's just tacked on. That's just to give me some wind resistance while I'm working. So I whacked this up pretty quick. It probably took me, with the nail gun, probably took me probably 2.5 days to get to that point where I'm at the moment, and that's just working on my own. So by having this here, it just gives you a little bit of comfort. So I can watch the TV, I can charge my phone, have my lighting on, have my fridges running, I can charge all my batteries for all my 12 volt gear, and then I'm not relying on any 240 power at this point. I do have 240 power running down at the moment. That's from my main house down to where I'm working the cabin area. It's quite far away, but eventually I'll be taking that off with the large battery system I have, and then we run large inverters to be able to do all of that kind of thing. If you're going to be using 3-phase, etc., whatever, you're always going to need that. So you have a generator as a backup, but predominantly you'd be 98% you don't rely on any grid, 240 or anything like that, but have a generator as a backup if you wanted to. So if I wanted to use some of the bigger power tools, but once I finish the build, I won't need to be running drop saws. I won't have to run all this the high powered stuff that I need to obviously cut if I'm using big steel and the rest of it. But the 12 volt, sorry, the 18 volt Ryobi, I found even the saws, so your wood cutting saws and those types of things, they're quite efficient. It's just when you come to some of the thicker gear that they'll struggle with the battery. So it's just always good to have a 240 there. But that's using a V5.5 in a real life situation. The way you really can use it when you're off gridding, and because it's portable, like again, I just picked this up from over there because I'm using that up at another cabin, is that I can just pull this out if I wanted to. So the other one's screwed to the wall down the bottom there. So it's pretty easy. I can just tack it in with one screw because it's not obviously driving. I've got the brackets on the wall, and I've got one screw that holds in place, and it just sit on the brackets, and then I can just unscrew it with the cordless driver, which is plenty of that around here. Just take it out and move it if I need to. So that's a V5.5, real life situation, you're off grid, small home, you're doing a rural property, if you're living in a sea container, it's great for that type of thing there. You can run a good 12 volt shower off it as well, so you can get yourself a 12 volt shower, and obviously you're going to heat your water up by using something else other than the Nomad, because they do draw a lot of power. But if you get yourself some hot water because you've got like a fire burning or anything like that, even if you're going to use a $20 Bunsen from Bunnings, heat your water up, 20 or 30 litres of it, and you can go have yourself a shower, get yourself a 12 volt shower thing, maybe from King's or something like that, and that'll quite happily run it while you still get your lighting and all the rest of it on. So if you're actually working while you're in your building at the same time you're living in, like I'm doing at the moment, I'm actually sleeping in here when I'm up here. I do have to clear some space because I can't sleep in here right at the moment because I've got stuff everywhere. So hopefully later today I'll clean things up, and then I'll be able to sleep here tonight in the swag. So that's V5.5. It's contact@nomadpdu.com.au. If you've got any questions, or if you do want to order one of these, contact@nomadpdu.com.au, and we can dispatch pretty much within 24 hours. So again, we'll talk a little bit later once it's daylight. We'll have a look at this in action in a few other places as well. But have a good day, and we'll talk again soon.